Episode 3 picks up right where Episode 2 left off. Ruth is escorted back to the prison, and Wilfred prepares for battle. But Layton's Snowpiercer didn't stop. It actually kept going. Wilfred knows he needs to act quickly, though, because the resistance is fired up. The issue is, as he plugs on to try to catch up to Layton, he's slowed down by a roadblock that Layton put there. While he tries to catch up to Layton, he instructs Kevin to go find members of the resistance and make an example out of them. Wilfred starts looking at the maps because he knows that Layton isn't going to connect end to end. He would just be picked apart by jackboots. But there's a rail yard coming up of parallel tracks. He figures that's where Layton was going to want to make his move. But as Wilfred is trying to figure out what Layton is going to do, Layton is in his car trying to figure out the same thing. He's trying to figure out which track he needs to maneuver to be side by side with Snowpiercer. The plan that they do have for when they do get parallel to Snowpiercer is for Josie to hop on over, bridge the gap, create a distraction that causes Layton to go over and take Big Alice. But as Layton waits for Snowpiercer to catch up, in the bowels of Snowpiercer, the resistance is at work. But it's not really resistance work, they're just actually doing their jobs. Pike, however, knows that he needs to get to Ruth, let her know what's going on, and try to formulate a plan. But Zerek reminds him, we can't afford to lose you, man. You're in charge now. So Strongboy creates the distraction. When Strongboy creates this distraction, though, Kevin has the members of the resistance that he needs to, quote, make an example out of. Strongboy, Zerek, a few others, they're all arrested and taken to the night car. As they're being interrogated, LJ and Osweiler are being awoken from their, quote, honeymoon because they need to open up the night car and entertain the jackboots that are there. LJ is loving the kind of torture that's going down. Osweiler, however, does not. He tells LJ, I didn't sign up for this. LJ tells him, war isn't pretty. Wilfred will protect us. But Osweiler says, yeah, if he wins. I mean, what happens if Layton rolls in here? He sees us, Wilfred's little wedding puppets? LJ, in an attempt to try to convince both of them, says to Osweiler, we're not guilty, we're just providing a venue. All the while, Kevin is torturing Strongboy by freezing digits of his hand and smashing it until he talks, although Strongboy isn't talking. It gets to the point where Kevin actually freezes Strongboy's tongue in an attempt to get him to talk, but he still doesn't say anything. At this point, though, both trains are parallel. Josie gets in position to make her move, but she has to pull back at the last second because she notices that Wilfred has some sort of cannon, and he does. It's like a grappling hook that's going to penetrate Layton's train and drag it in. It forces Layton and his train to quickly divert tracks, but when they do, they almost derail. It gets so bad that they're going to have to cut the last 4 cars off of the train. They're barely able to get Asha out of there, but when they cut free, they're good to go. The issue is when they cut free, they have completely lost Wilfred altogether. And he has cut off communications, so they don't have any sign of him. They're once again driving blind, and I'll remind you, they don't have much food. When Layton's Snowpiercer had to divert tracks really quickly, Wilfred celebrated. And he did it with Zara. He made Zara watch it all. What he's blown away with, though, is the fact that Zara showed no emotion whatsoever. He even says, I just hobbled your man, and you don't show anything. But Zara still doesn't show any emotion. Wilfred proclaims to both Javi and Zara that at this rate, the war will be over by daybreak. Wilfred has Zara sit down, and he starts telling her how much he has invested in her and the child, but she cuts him off and says, yeah, and the fact that they're not going to attack the engine if I'm in it. That shuts Wilfred up, and he walks back over to Javi to try to figure out what their next move is going to be. But little do they know that the resistance is raging on. Pike did make it to Ruth's cabin. He was able to intimidate the jackboot who was keeping guard to move aside. It's actually the same jackboot who gave up the details on the Watermaster helping the resistance. The guy's probably not cut out for that job. Pike gives Ruth an update on what's going on, and Ruth tells him, well, if we're rolling around the dark, we need to signal Layton on where we are. Pike, though, starts talking about getting Ruth out of there, but she has to remind him, no, this war is bigger than both of us. We need to signal Layton, and I have an idea. She tells Pike about fireworks that are located on Snowpiercer that he can let off, and how exactly he should go about doing it. So Pike takes off to try to signal Layton's car. And over with Layton, they need the Resistance's help. They have no idea where Wilfred is. Layton, however, does need to go talk to their newest member, Asha. For the time being, he seemed to have put her in Melanie's old cabin, but Asha is just sitting in the dark with her helmet on. When Layton comes in to let her know that it's going to get worse before it gets better, she starts kind of demanding some answers. She asks why exactly Mr. Wilfred damaged the train, and when Layton brings up the fact that it's just a cat and mouse game, she kind of scoffs at that, saying, oh, and you're supposed to be the cat? 8 of you versus the great Mr. Wilfred? But Layton tries to set her straight, saying, he's not as great as you think he is. We saved our own damn selves, and this is personal for us. I'm just here to warn you. In order to kind of put her mind at ease that they're not going to attack the train, and it is personal, Layton reveals that he has a partner on Snowpiercer who's pregnant. To which Asha says, if you're doing this for a child, you will do things that you never thought were possible. But she doesn't say it in an inspiring way. She says it more in a I've been there, trust me kind of way. Layton then heads back to the engine room because they're at the point in the rail yard where it's their best opportunity to see Wilfred again. They have pretty much everybody with binoculars looking all over the place for any sign of Snowpiercer, but nothing yet. That is, until they see the fireworks that Pike turned on. It's exactly what Layton needed, but it's exactly the opposite for Wilfred. Now that Layton knows where Wilfred is, they can figure out exactly what his plan is. And his plan is to sneak out of the rail yard, because if he does, he's pretty much gone forever. But because of the fireworks, Layton is going to try to beat him to it, cut him off. It works. They block Snowpiercer, and Wilfred has nowhere to go. Both engines are actually pointed at each other. The first thing Layton does is make sure that their deal is still intact. He was supposed to keep Audrey safe, and in return, Wilfred was to harm nobody, especially Zara. Wilfred confirms this and even has Zara talk to Layton over the loudspeaker so he knows that she is indeed safe. Layton, in return, has Audrey talk to Wilfred. If you were wondering, the romance is still very much alive with those two. As Audrey is unknowingly distracting Wilfred, Layton gets ready to go aboard Snowpiercer. Once Wilfred kind of gets his head together, he makes his next move on the chessboard, telling Layton's train that if they don't reconnect, Snowpiercer is just dead on the tracks. This is going to result in everybody freezing to death. Ben grabs the microphone and tells Wilfred, you're desperate. But Wilfred lets him know, you don't have a choice. So Ben tells him, prepare to connect. And if they do that, there's going to be a bunch of jackboots waiting to take them into custody. But they don't have to worry about that, because Ben tells Javi a message in Spanish, and Javi opens up the side door. Then Josie hops up on the windshield of Big Alice and starts distracting him, acting like she's going to penetrate the windshield, which would kill everybody, including Zara on board. It freaks out Wilfred just enough to lock himself out of the engine room, but he backs up right into Layton's hands. Layton beats the crap out of him, and then he orders Wilfred to tell his men to stand down, and they do. And then Wilfred announces to the train that Andre Layton has it. Layton announces to everybody that they're back, and then he returns into Zara's arms for the first time in 6 months, which is a little awkward for Josie because the two did kind of kiss, although Layton did have to put an end to it saying, I'm kind of with somebody. The two trains connect, and Layton is back in charge. Some people are thrilled about this. Other people, like Kevin, are distraught. Then there's LJ, who turns to Osweiler and says, I think it's about time we get on the right side of history. She hands Zrek an orange and then stabs Kevin in the throat. It takes Osweiler completely off guard. He did not see that coming. But she proclaims to everybody, long live the resistance. So she just changed teams in the blink of an eye. After Layton puts Wilfred into custody, he goes and meets with Ruth, and they have a celebratory drink about his return. He then tells Ruth about the plan to get everybody to New Eden. Ruth is a little concerned, though. She tells Layton, we just had a really tough 6 months, and now you're going to drag them into the toughest stretch of track. But Layton shakes his head and says, no, I'm going to put it to a vote. We're going to show people democracy works. That's cause for concern for Ruth, because she's not confident that Layton is going to win. She reminds him that half the people on board aren't big fans of him, but he promises that he will convince them that this is the right move. In order to do that, though, he's going to need Asha's help. He brings her into the library and tells her that everybody's going to have a vote on where they're going to go next, including her. But in order to guarantee that they go to the new place, they're going to need to lie, and Asha's going to have to be a part of that. Asha agrees, and the two head to make the announcement that they're putting their location to a vote. As those two were talking, back in Layton's old home, the Tail, they're in mourning because, unfortunately, Strong Boy didn't make it. Some people who have survived are in drawers, and that's who Till goes to check on. She checks on Roach, who is stable, Carly is stable, and Anne is stable, but she's in such rough shape that Till gets pretty emotional looking at her. And then finally, there's the reunion between Javi and Ben. That's also a pretty emotional one, because this is the first time that Ben is seeing Javi since his face was chewed up by a dog. They reunite, and Javi just cries into Ben's arms. A little while later, everybody hears Layton's announcement on the plan to put it to a vote. And then he turns the mic over to Asha, who lies to everybody, saying that not only did she survive, but she's from New Eden. That's exactly what Layton was looking for. Everybody on the train does vote, and it's an overwhelming yes to going to New Eden. And it's all because of Asha's lie. Ruth gives the good news to Ben, Layton, Josie, Alex, and Till. And they all start kind of talking about the fact that This is yet another lie on a train that's kind of built on lies, like the mysterious Mr. Wilfred and Melanie being out there. Leighton, however, thinks that this is going to be the last one. But one person who isn't at this meeting is Asha, because she is still in the library, and she's once again wearing that helmet, and it doesn't seem like she's holding it together all that well. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.